Question: could you clarify what happened during the discussion on the Global Digital Compact at the UN? Answer: on September 22nd, the Global Digital Compact, GDC, was adopted by the UN General Assembly as an annex to the Pact for the Future. The negotiations on the draft compact were quite difficult. Throughout the process, deep-seated contradictions between Russia and developing countries, represented by the Group of 77 on the one hand, and the West on the other, became fully apparent. The Global South countries advocated for an increased role in Internet governance, calling for specific measures to rapidly close the digital divide in line with achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The key objective for our partners was to gain access to advanced information and communication technologies, ICT, so they could develop necessary products and services themselves, rather than relying on ready-made solutions from global corporations. This largely stems from distrust toward Western companies, which have repeatedly been caught blatantly violating national laws and engaging in predatory business practices. The U.S. and its allies, on the contrary, sought to entrench the dominant position of their technological monopolies. To achieve this, they attempted to dilute the role of states in decision-making on international technological issues, in direct contradiction to the UN Charter. They tried to impose their flawed human rights standards and refused to share the levers of Internet governance. They resisted any efforts to hold global digital platforms accountable under national laws. The GDC does contain some positive elements proposed by Russia and the Group of 77, such as the promotion of open source developments and the reaffirmation of the importance of preserving the global nature of the Internet. However, unfortunately, biased provisions dominate the text. For this reason, the Russian Federation distanced itself from the consensus on the GDC, as well as from the entire Pact for the Future. In the interest of effectively regulating the digital sphere, we will continue to engage with foreign partners, both in relevant multilateral forums and on a bilateral basis. In shaping such cooperation, we will be guided not by hollow slogans, but by the provisions of the UN Charter and the principles of international law. Question: a draft convention on countering the use of ICT for criminal purposes is currently under discussion at the UN. Are Russia's proposals being taken into account? And if this document is adopted, how will countermeasures be implemented? Answer: the work on the draft Universal Treaty to Combat Information Crime has been completed. On August 8th, a special committee established in 2019 with the support of around 80 countries agreed on the text of the Convention on Cybercrime, strengthening international cooperation in combating certain crimes committed, using information and communication systems, and in the exchange of electronic evidence exchange of electronic evidence related to all serious crimes. A permanent review body will also be established to assess the effectiveness of the one undeniable advantage of the We will strive for the approval of the agreed text by the UN General Assembly during its 79th session, and will advocate for the treaty's prompt entry into force, which requires 40 ratifications. Question. According to experts, there are currently 250 million fewer women than men with internet access worldwide. Is gender inequality in ICT use being discussed at the UN? Answer. The issue of increasing internet accessibility is being addressed by the International Telecommunication Union, ITU, a specialized UN agency. Moreover, this topic is on the agenda of various UN bodies, such as the Commission on Science and Technology for Development, the Multi-Stakeholder Forum on Science, Technology, and Innovation, the Internet Governance Forum, and the World Summit on the Information Society. When addressing this issue, it is important to respect the sovereignty of states and take into account their cultural characteristics. Imposing ready-made solutions that may contradict local traditions and norms should be avoided. Simply connecting to the internet is not enough to meet citizens' demands for safe digital services. It is necessary to assist developing countries in building their technological capacities as a whole so that they can independently create a national digital environment that meets societal needs and is protected from external threats. Question. Are the sanctions imposed on Russia hindering negotiations on new challenges? Answer. In this context, it's not so much about sanctions, which include visa restrictions against Russian representatives, but rather about the hybrid war unleashed by the collective West against our country. This directly affects intergovernmental cooperation in countering new challenges and threats, NCTs. It was Washington and Brussels that were the first to essentially abandon any constructive bilateral dialogue with us on pressing issues such as counterterrorism, information security, the fight against organized crime, drug trafficking, corruption, as well as other current security problems. Moreover, the West has adopted a stance aimed at infringing upon Russia's rights and interests in relevant international organizations and formats, or even directly pushing us out of them for politicized reasons. Outrageous examples include the suspension of our participation in the work of FATF, Financial Action Task Force, and the refusal to issue visas to members of Russian delegations for participation in UN-related events. At the same time, Western actors are increasingly using the NCT agenda to create a negative information backdrop around Russia. Let me remind you that the Americans and Europeans quickly reacted to the tragedy at Crocus City Hall, attempting to deflect any suspicion from their protégés in Kyiv for this crime, and to accuse the Russian authorities of incompetence in fighting terrorism. We never heard sincere words of condolence from them, which undoubtedly does not do them any honor. However, the unprecedented politicization and Ukrainization of international cooperation have resulted in irreparable reputational costs for the collective West itself, led by the U.S. This is perfectly understood by all responsible participants in the international community. Attempts by Washington and its satellites to achieve Russia's political isolation have been unsuccessful, despite blatant blackmail and intimidation from Western actors. The vast majority of established friendly relations have simply ignored these anti-Russian stereotypes. We continue to develop political dialogue and practical cooperation on a wide range of security issues with our reliable partners in the global South, including countering new challenges and threats. A significant indicator of this is the rapid strengthening of influence and the expansion of relevant regional cooperation within BRICS, the SCO, the CIS, the CSTO, ASEAN, and also continue to advocate for the irreplaceability of collective efforts by the global community combating NCTs, with the UN playing a central and coordinating